a production of AOC Community Media in partnership with The Advocate, the Acadiana Advocate, our local source of journalism. And we could not bring you the news every day without our faithful volunteers, and especially this man who's here with us this morning, Bruce Cohen. Good morning, Bruce. You doing all right this morning? You ready to read that news out to our listeners at home?
I am ready and willing and able, and we've got a lot of ground to cover this morning because Fridays usually they stack them up, especially with this holiday weekend. So I'm ready to blast off.
Well, that's great. I'm going to mute my mic so that my cat quits talking to the audience and let you take it away, Bruce.
Sam might have some very interesting things to say. Who knows?
He almost certainly does, but he just won't learn English. Thank you, Bruce.
You're welcome, Matt. A very good morning to you, Acadiana. And we'll start off with a story by Claire Taylor. Mail-in ballots popular in Lafayette early voting. More Lafayette Parish voters participating in early voting for the July 11th presidential preference election are choosing to cast ballots by mail rather than in person due to the threat of the coronavirus. Charlene Mo Menard, Lafayette Parish Registrar of Voters, said as of Thursday afternoon, 1,639 Lafayette Parish voters cast ballots in person compared to 3,189 who voted by mail. Another 4,085 Lafayette Parish voters qualified to vote by mail and were sent a ballot but hadn't yet returned the completed form, Mo Menard added. Of the ballots cast by mail or in person thus far, Democrats cast 344 more votes than Republicans. Democratic ballots totaled 2,586 as of Thursday afternoon. Republicans cast 224 ballots, or I should say 2,242. Because this is the presidential preference election, which is known also as a primary, voters registered as Democrats can only vote for a Democrat, and those registered as a Republican can only vote for a Republican. In the 2016 presidential preference election, Mo Menard said 2,487 people voted early in person, with 929 voting by mail, the opposite of this year. Other things have changed this election cycle because of COVID-19. Those voting early in person are asked to wear a mask and bring their own ink pen to sign in. Workers in the registrar's office are wearing masks and other PPE equipment against the virus. Voters also are being given an extra week to cast ballots in the presidential preference election. The last day of in-person early voting in Lafayette Parish is from 8:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Saturday, that's this coming Saturday, at the Registrar's Office, 1010 Lafayette Street in downtown Lafayette. Moving Mouton, Mayor President's quest to relocate Confederate statue draws mixed reactions by Claire Taylor. Lafayette Parish Mayor President Josh Guillory's announcement on Wednesday that he will seek the removal of a monument to Confederate General Alfred Mouton from city property drew passionate reactions on social media from people on both sides of the issue, from those congratulating and thanking him to others saying he lost their vote. The statue at the intersection of Jefferson Street and Lee Avenue, an entrance to downtown Lafayette, was commissioned in 1922 by the United Daughters of the Confederacy and donated to the city. It stands on city property, and city tax dollars are used to clean the statue and maintain the grounds upon which it stands. Mouton's family founded Lafayette. Alfred Mouton was a slave owner who died in the Civil War during a battle in Mansfield. He is buried in the St. John Evangelist Cemetery in Lafayette with his family. Guillory announced Wednesday evening he will instruct the city's attorneys to pursue the means necessary to move the statue and will work to preserve it and relocate it to a place where it can be observed in its proper historical context. Fred Prejean, president of Move the Mindset, a group pushing for equality, justice, and removal of the Mouton statue, quoted Martin Luther King Jr. in response, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. We are finally at the footsteps of justice." Prejean and several others with Move the Mindset are challenging a 1980 settlement between Lafayette and the United Daughters of the Confederacy, in which the daughters obtained a permanent injunction prohibiting removal of the statue except for road work. A court hearing is set for August 17th. Marja Broussard, president of the local chapter of the NAACP, in a statement Thursday, said the group is pleased it will make sure Guillory has the statue removed from city property. We further applaud the recognition of the racist purpose of this Confederate statue, Broussard wrote. Efforts to locate a private location, a museum location for the symbol from a racist time in the history of Lafayette should move with speed. Bishop Douglas Desautels of the Catholic Diocese of Lafayette, who has been in talks with Guillory about the statue, said in a statement Thursday he supports the decision to look for another location for the statue. Public monuments on public property should benefit the well-being of all citizens, Desautels said in his statement. African Americans who are citizens of Lafayette should not be reminded of the painful suffering of slavery, segregation, and Jim Crow laws by a city-owned monument on city-owned property. The growing call for healing, justice, and equality should awaken in all of us the nobility of those goals. Not everyone applauded or supports moving the Confederate statue. Amy Fontenot wrote on Guillory's Facebook page, "History is not meant to be liked. It is meant to be learned from. In textbooks, there is no history of the Mouton statue. It's not a win for everyone to have the statue removed. We need history of all kinds to be taught to everyone. History is important." Paula Person Landry wrote, "What is next? Someone will complain that the Cajun culture offends them and we lose all history about them? Come on, stop this madness." Michelle Thibodeau Snyder offered, "I am very disappointed that this course of action is being taken. If the judge decides on its removal, where will it be erected? I hope it will not be hidden away in a warehouse." A descendant of the Moutons, Gabriel Mouton, wrote that he supports moving the statue. "If anyone wants to visit my ancestor Jean, along with his governor's son and general grandson, in a more important and appropriate location than the statue ever was or will be. The gravestones are all in St. John Cemetery," he added. "The statue is not my ancestor. It's an object, and my family did not erect it." Okay. Positive results topping 10%, the new norm. Lafayette, Iberia, continuously setting daily records by Ben Myers. Positive coronavirus test rates in Lafayette and Iberia parishes are exceeding 10% on a sustained basis, even as those parishes continuously set daily case records. Hospitalizations in the surrounding region continue to soar, with a 150% increase in the last 2 weeks, from 54 on June 18th to 136 on Thursday. Hospitalizations in the 7-parish Region 4 hit a new peak the day before, and they show no sign of slowing, with 10 added on Thursday. Lafayette Parish is also seeing an increasing number of deaths, with an average of 1 per day over the past 2 weeks. The 7-day positive test rates of Lafayette and Iberia parishes have exceeded 10% for 7 straight days, meaning individual days below that mark have not been enough to reduce the 7-day rate for a week straight. State and federal authorities have set a 10% positive rate as a benchmark for testing capacities. Anything above that mark indicates more needs to be done to find people who are infected. The 7-day case counts in Lafayette and Iberia parishes are rising alongside the positive test rates. Lafayette's 749 on Thursday was a 36% increase since June 26. Iberia's 222 was a 47% increase in the same time. 7-day comparisons between Thursday and June 25th, the previous Thursday, are skewed because the week prior to June 25th contained a day in which the state eliminated duplicate tests, resulting in a negative daily count across the state. Statewide, the health department reported 1,383 more coronavirus cases, 17 more deaths, and 41 more hospitalizations in its daily noon update on Thursday. There were 15,286 more tests reported to Louisiana on Thursday. Out of those tests, 0.5% were positive for coronavirus. The percent positive rate over the last 7 days was 7.63%. During phase one, there was an average of a 4.78% positive rate. The Department of Health Regions 2, which encompasses the Baton Rouge area, had a 17.3% positive rate on Thursdays. Medical officers warn the public, change of behavior urge to stop virus by Adam Daigle, Acadiana business editor. Both Our Lady of Lourdes and Lafayette General Medical Centers rank in the top 5 hospitals in the state for the number of patients who have tested positive for COVID-19, chief medical officers from each hospital said this week. Dr. Amanda Luge of Lafayette General and Dr. Henry Kaufman of Our Lady of Lourdes noted the hospitals also rank near the bottom in the region for the number of intensive care unit beds available as the number of coronavirus cases in the Acadiana area continues to surge. The Severn Parish Lafayette region set a new high for COVID-19 related hospitalizations this week, and both hospitals released a video on Wednesday advising residents to take precaution in order to stop the spread and move into phase 3. I don't see how we're going to get there with our current trajectory if we don't slow things down, Loge said. All it takes for us is to wear a face covering that will protect you and the people around you in case you are carrying the virus. With the direction we're on right now, we have to change our behaviors and change them quickly. Both noted much of the recent spike is coming from 18 to 29-year-old age group. Lafayette General has reported a 200% increase in hospitalizations in the last 3 weeks, Loge noted, and most patients are still in the older age ranges, age 54 for patients, 65 in ICU. But they are contracting it from younger age groups. LGH announced Thursday it will return to local visitor restrictions, which means most visitors will not be allowed and families should use alternate ways to communicate with hospitalized family members. Only visitors allowed are parents of the children in the NICU, spouses of women in labor, or end-of-life patients or patients with cognitive or physical impairments. Those visitors must wear a mask and be asymptomatic. We continue to monitor the risks of COVID-19 closely and will adjust visitor restrictions as necessary, Lafayette General officers said in the announcement. We appreciate your help in keeping our patients and employees safe. Lourdes does not have as many patients in the ICU this time around, Kaufman said, but people are still succumbing to the virus. Unless there's some association with some younger member of the family who has been out and about and exposed, and they brought it back home, into the home, he said. There really needs to be an enhanced awareness of community spread among those in the 18 to 26-year-old population that are going out in the community, being active and bringing it back home where it's affecting the older generations. Then we'll turn to a couple public service announcements at this time. From the Diocese of Lafayette Office of Communications. Bishop Douglas Desatel of the Diocese of Lafayette has confirmed with Lafayette Mayor President Josh Guillory that churches are exempt from the updated COVID-19 guidelines now in effect in Lafayette Parish, which limit gatherings to 200 people and mandate the wearing of masks. All Catholic Church parishes in the diocese will continue to operate under the State of Louisiana Phase 2 reopening directives. Bishop Desatel continues to strongly recommend that parishioners wear masks while attending Mass. Camp Unique from the Dreams Foundation. Every summer, the Dreams Foundation of Acadiana hosts the greatest camp of all, Camp Unique. Camp Unique is suited for individuals with special needs. Camp Unique will be held July 13th through the 17th for ages 5 through 13, and July 20th through the 24th for ages 14 and up. Fee will be $75 a person, and the theme this year is Peace and Love. All Camp Unique sessions will be held at Lark's Acadian Village. Individuals of all ages have a blast participating at a camp that is specifically tailored to them. They get the opportunity to take part in activities such as art, fitness, karaoke, music, and dance, as well as getting a Camp Unique t-shirt and a snack every day. A highlight of Camp Unique this year will be the storytelling session by Chief Greyhawk Perkins, Common and Dreams Foundation Executive Director Danielle Watkins. As a recognized expert on Native American and American colonial history, Perkins has inspired many audiences over the years, sharing tales of ancient cultures as a travel storyteller and as a teacher of various subjects in Louisiana's school system. The registration for Camp Unique can be found on the Dreams Foundation of Acadiana website, dreamsfoundationaca.org. Volunteers are being sought at this time, so if you're interested in volunteering, just go to their webpage and look at the volunteer tab and apply. For more information about Camp Unique, contact Danielle Watkins at DONIELLE Watkins by email at danielle@dreamsfoundationaca.org or phone 337-962-1609. That's 337-962-1609. Vitalant begins testing all blood donations for antibodies to COVID-19. Vitalant became the first national blood bank to test all blood donations for antibodies to SARS-CoV-2, the coronavirus that causes COVID-19. The nation's largest independent nonprofit blood collector, serving hospital patients in South Louisiana, is providing test results to donors who complete successful blood donations, which are critically needed now. The antibody test authorized by the FDA will indicate if the donor's immune system has produced antibodies to the virus, regardless of whether they ever showed symptoms. It's possible that over time, the broad use of antibody tests and clinical follow-up will provide the medical community with more information on whether a person who has recovered from COVID-19 is at a lower risk of infection, and if so, for how long. For more information, visit vitalant.org/COVID-free. Donors are urged to get blood as soon as possible. Appointments are strongly recommended. You can visit Vitalant, that's VITALANT.org, or call 877-258-4825. That's 877-258-4825. Okay, going back into our news. Employees at Dino's and Pour test positive for virus by Megan Wyatt. As the number of known coronavirus cases in Acadiana continues to rise, so does the number of confirmed cases among restaurants and other public-facing businesses. The owners of Dino's and Pour confirmed Thursday positive tests among their staff. Two public-facing Dino's South employees have tested positive for COVID-19 in the past 2 weeks. The first employee notified management of a positive result for the virus on June 19th, according to restaurant owner Tim Metcalf. The busser had worked multiple shifts at the restaurant leading up to the confirmed case, Metcalf said. Dino's South, located at 2312 Calais Saloon Road, closed early that Friday. Metcalf hired a professional team to deep clean the restaurant and air conditioning system and paid for rapid COVID-19 testing for the other 38 employees who work at the location of that restaurant. All the employees received the negative test result, and they celebrated and went downtown that night, Metcalf said with a sigh. They went and celebrated afterwards and posted pictures of it on social media. No mask. Metcalf admitted that he only wears a mask when required, which he said was the case during a trip to Las Vegas last weekend. Otherwise, Metcalf said he tries to avoid spending time in groups to protect himself from COVID-19. A second employee of the restaurant's Southside location tested positive for the coronavirus on Monday afternoon. That front of the house employee had not worked at its restaurant since 5 days earlier on June 24th. Metcalf said an employee had spent time in a crowded condo in Florida between the last shift of the restaurant and the positive test result. Again, the restaurant air conditioning system was professionally sanitized, Metcalf said. He's now scheduled weekly sanitation for both the south location and his original restaurant at 305 Bertrand Drive. So far, we've dodged bullets at Bertrand, Metcalf said. We've been pretty lucky there. We've had people's roommates and family members in the home test positive. So we've had employees who are staying home later test positive, but we've thankfully not had anybody there who's been working shifts test positive. Metcalf said he's been following all recommendations from public health officials at both restaurants, including greater spacing between tables and face mask use for employees who interact with customers. Dino's, like other businesses, have been checked by local officials for compliance as coronavirus cases rise at a dangerous rate in Lafayette Parish. We've been 100% compliant, Metcalf said, and honestly, I'm not really worried about the day city's checks. I'm worried about the customer base. Do they feel safe coming into the restaurant? I don't want somebody coming in and posting a video saying Tim Metcalf at Dino's doesn't care about public safety, or he has connections and isn't being held to the same standard. Poor Restaurant and Bar temporarily closed its River Ranch location on Thursday after an employee tested positive for COVID-19, according to restaurant owner Walter Hidalgo. Poor and its nearby sister restaurant, Romacelli's, was professionally sanitized Thursday as a precaution, although the employee did not work at the latter restaurant, Hidalgo said. He was unable to confirm what position the employee worked in when her most recent shift at the restaurant was, or when she began showing symptoms of the virus. Some of the restaurant employees were tested Thursday, and the rest are going to be tested on Friday. No other employees have shown symptoms of the coronavirus, Hidalgo said. He said the River Ranch location of Poor was closed for lunch and dinner service Thursday and would remain closed until it is safe to reopen. These are really unusual times, Hidalgo said, and we're going to take every precaution possible to keep our staff and our guests safe. We've done that today by getting both of our restaurants sanitized, and we're going to get all the employees tested before we get them back in there. 2 new allegations added against deceased priest Lafayette cop by Jacqueline DeRobertis. The Diocese of Baton Rouge reported 2 new abuse allegations Wednesday against a deceased Catholic priest previously accused of abuse in Ascension Parish. The list now includes more information regarding the Reverend George Gensler, who was accused of abuse that occurred in the late 1970s and between 1984 and 1998, said the Diocese of Baton Rouge Communications Secretary Dan Bornay. Reports of abuse were received in February 1994 and October 2018, but 2 new credible allegations were reported days apart in February 2020, he said. Past abuse was reported at St. Anthony at Padua in Darrow, where Gensler served from 1979 to 1994. He was placed on administrative leave and permanently reported from ministry during his last year at the church. It's unclear if the new reports involve St. Anthony or another pastoral assignment. Gensler also served at Our Lady of Mercy in Baton Rouge and as the spiritual director at St. Joseph Cathedral Preparatory Diocesan Seminary, where he would have interacted with teenage boys. As part of our ongoing commitment to transparency, the following entry in the diocesan list of credible accusation of sexual abuse by clergy is hereby revised as shown below to reflect the recent receipt of additional allegations, Bornay said in a statement. Gensler died in 2016 and was once characterized as a crusading priest cop. Prior to his organization, Gensler worked as a police officer in New Orleans, according to media reports. Then after taking his vows in the Diocese of Lafayette in 1970, he was sworn in as an officer with the Lafayette Police Department 3 years later. He even served as the FBI chairman or chaplain at the FBI New Orleans field office, according to FBI spokesman Greg Beppesy. Borne said all known or suspected abuse of a child or vulnerable adult should be reported immediately to local law enforcement or to the Department of Children and Family Services at area code 855-452-5437. Allegations of abuse, including clergy or other representatives of the church, should also be reported to Amy Corden, the Diocesan Victim Assistance Coordinator at area code 225-242-0250. In Opelousas, police man in serious condition after shooting police blotter by staff reports. A man is in serious condition after an overnight shooting in Opelousas, police said. Opelousas police officers responded to a disturbance of possible shooting near the intersection of Hall and Fern Streets about 12:30 a.m. Thursday, and discovered a male victim suffering from multiple gunshot wounds, Opelousas police spokesman Major Mark Guidry said. The man was unable to provide officers with information about the shooter or shooters before he was taken to a local hospital. He remained hospitalized in serious condition Thursday morning, Guidry said. Anyone with information about the shooting is asked to contact the Opelousas Police Department at 337-948-2500 or go online at crimetips@opelousaspd.com or the St. Landry Crime Stoppers tip line. To contact a crime reporter at the Acadiana Advocate, you can email acadiananews@theadvocate.com or call 337-534-0526. Okay. All right, and it's about that time. I'll read a couple more PSAs and then we'll get to the day in history. The AOC teams up with the United Way of Acadiana for Learn United. The United Way of Acadiana has teamed up with AOC and other local educational groups for Learn United, bridging the digital gap to provide educational resources for households that don't have internet but do have a television. The Learn United program airs weekdays from 8 to 2 on AOC2, Cox 16, and LUS 4, and streaming at aocinc.org/watch. For the daily schedules and to submit content for the program, visit United Way of Acadiana website, unitedwayofacadiana.org/learn-united. If you're feeling overwhelmed with stress, fear, and anxiety about the uncertainty surrounding the public health emergency, this COVID-19 pandemic, there is a special Keeping Calm Through COVID hotline you can call. This connects you to trained, compassionate counselors who can offer support and who can direct you to mental health and substance abuse counseling services. Trained counselors are available 24/7. All calls are confidential. Call 1-866-310-7977. That's 866-310-7977. Locally, you can pick up the phone and dial 311, and you can get in contact with a call center with volunteers and medical professionals who are active 24/7 to answer your questions about COVID-19 and to determine if you need to get screened. The program is called Stop the Spread. Call instead, #StopTheSpread. You can also find information at 311 Lafayette.services online. You may also call 311 and press option 2 if you are a business owner, employee, or are looking for a job to get information about applying for small business recovery loans, apply for unemployment benefits, or related programs. All right, it is about the half-hour mark, so we'll go to our day in history, our zodiac or horoscope, and the funerals in the Acadiana area for today. Today is Friday, July 3rd, the 185th day of 2020. There are 181 days left in the year, potential shopping days, as I always say. Today's highlight in history: on July 3rd, 1863, the three-day Civil War Battle of Gettysburg in Pennsylvania ended in a major victory for the North as Confederate troops failed to breach Union positions during an assault known as Pickett's Charge. Also on this date, in 1608, the city of Quebec was founded by Samuel de Champlain. In 1775, General George Washington took command of the Continental Army at Cambridge, Massachusetts, my home state. In 1944, during World War II, Soviet forces recaptured Minsk from the Germans. In 1950, the first carrier strikes of the Korean War took place at the USS Valley Forge, and the HMS Triumph sent fighter planes against North Korean targets. In 1971, singer Jim Morrison of The Doors died in Paris at age 27, or so everyone says. The word is still out about Jim Morrison's death. In 1976, Israel launched its daring mission to rescue 106 passengers and Air France crew members being held at Entebbe Airport in Uganda by pro-Palestinian hijackers. The commandos succeeded in rescuing all but 4 of the hostages. In 1979, Dan White, convicted of voluntary manslaughter in the shooting deaths of San Francisco Mayor George Moscone and Supervisor Harvey Milk, was sentenced to 7 years and 8 months in prison. He ended up serving 5 years. In 1986, President Ronald Reagan presided over a gala ceremony in New York Harbor that saw the relighting of the renovated Statue of Liberty. And before I move on, as I mentioned about Dan White and Harvey killing George Moscone and Supervisor Harvey Milk. Harvey Milk was a very strong advocate for the LGBTQ community at that time in San Francisco and across the nation. There was a film made a few years ago called Milk. You should definitely check it out. It's a very worthwhile piece of history that you should be familiar with. And again, the film was called Milk, and Sean Penn played the part of Harvey Milk. In 1988, the U.S. Vincenzi shot down an Iran air jet line over the Persian Gulf, killing all 290 people on board. In 1996, Russians went to the polls to re-elect Boris Yeltsin president over his communist challenger, Gennady Zurganov, in a runoff. In 2005, a NASA space probe, Deep Impact, hit its comet target as planned in a mission to learn how the solar system formed. 10 years ago, President Barack Obama announced the awarding of nearly $22 billion for new solar plants that he said would create thousands of jobs. 5 years ago, the Solar Impulse 2, a plane powered by the sun's rays, landed in Hawaii after pilot Andre Borschberg made a record-breaking 5-day journey across the Pacific Ocean from Japan. 1 year ago today, political figures and fellow officers joined family members at the funeral for Luis Alvarez, a former New York City police detective who had fought until his final days for the extension of health benefits for September 11th responders. Today's birthdays: playwright Tom Stoppard is 83. Attorney Gloria Allred is 79. Folk singer Judah the Durham from the Seekers is 77. Actor Kurtwood Smith is 77. Country singer Johnny Lee is 74. Humorist Dave Barry is 73. Actor Bruce Altman is 65. Talk show host Montel Williams is 64. Country singer Aaron Tippin is 62. Actress Hunter Tylo is 58. TV chef Sandra Lee is 54. Actress singer Audra McDonald is 50. Actress comedian Jewel Klausner is 42. And actress Olivia Munn is 40. Looking at the zodiac or the horoscope. If you're a Cancer, do the best job possible. It's what you accomplish that will count, so don't waste your time on petty disagreements. Don't miss out on an opportunity before it entails change. Leo, make the physical and mental changes required to build confidence and raise your self-esteem. Don't waste time arguing. Success will result if you stay focused and work alone. Virgo, of course, my birth sign. Avoid outside influences or controlling individuals. Obtain facts and figures before making a decision. Don't rely on others when you can invest it in yourself. Avoid situations and people who could be harmful to your health. Libras, you have the right idea, and if you are patient, you will see excellent results. Your charm and intelligence will assure you that you receive the help you need. Scorpio, the more you do to help others, the more you will get in return. Develop new skills and pay more attention to changing economic trends. Sagittarius, caution will be necessary when dealing with manipulative people. Believe verified facts instead of paying attention to hearsay. Avoid joint money deals and outside interference. Capricorns, a logical approach to a situation that involves how you earn your living and your health and safety will give you greater leverage when dealing with your superiors. Share your point of view. Aquarius, be understanding and offer positive solutions. Reach out to someone you are worried about, but don't take on responsibilities that may jeopardize your reputation or position. Pisces, the situation isn't likely to go the way you expect. You'll do best if you stick to the truth, especially where emotional issues are concerned. Make adjustments to your lifestyle. Aries, if you take on a creative project, it will enhance the way you live. Don't trust someone to give you valid information. Verify all data you receive to avoid mistakes. Taurus, use your imagination to find a way to get things done on time without subjecting yourself to an unhealthy environment. Choose to be practical, not stubborn or illogical. Gemini, inconsistency and fickleness will cost you. Incorporate discipline into whatever you do, and you'll avoid jeopardizing your reputation or position. Make fitness and health priorities. And as always, the horoscope is an entertainment feature not based on scientific fact. Looking at the funerals in the Acadiana area today, James David, St. Anne's Catholic Church in Youngsville at 2 p.m. It's either James David or James David. Joyce Harris, St. Teresa Catholic Church in Crowley at 10 a.m. Hazel Hebert, St. Francis Regis Catholic Church in Arnaville at 11 a.m. And Aaron Thibodeau, All Saints Mausoleum at 10 a.m. All right, getting back into the news. Just check here. Did that one okay? Getting back to the coronavirus news, hundreds of cases in Louisiana traced to bars. More than 100 tied to Tigerland in Baton Rouge by Sam Carlin and David J. Mitchell. The Louisiana Department of Health had traced at least 230 cases of the coronavirus to bars across the state, including the more than 100 cases tied to Tigerland bars in Baton Rouge. Health Department spokeswoman Haley Neal said Thursday the agency had confirmed 19 outbreaks related to bars since June 8th. Still, the revelations have prompted neither state health officials nor Governor John Bel Edwards to take any further action to limit commerce in bars. A spokesman for a state hospitality industry trade group said the finding means businesses and customers need to follow the state's recommendation. It doesn't suggest bars can't find a way to operate while limiting the virus's spread. They need to focus on social distancing. They need to focus on hygiene and mask wearing, and they need to manage their crowds, says Stan Harris, CEO of the Louisiana Restaurant Association. The trade group represents bars, restaurants, and hotels in the state's outsized hospitality industry, which employed 230,000 people in December, a few months before the viral outbreak slammed the state in mid-March. The new cases tied to bars comes from both contact tracing and instances where outbreaks are reported to the agency, which is how the state learned of the Tigerland situation. Tigerland is an area of apartments, homes, and businesses, including a cluster of bars just off Nicholson Drive, primarily used by LSU students. Through an eye-popping number, The 230 cases tied to outbreaks in bars still represent just 1.3% of all new cases that were detected through testing between June 8th and this past Wednesday, state health data shows. During that period, Louisiana as a whole added 17,128 new cases, pushing the total from 43,050 to 60,178 through Wednesday. State health officials say 3/4 of those people are presumed to have recovered, though that still amounts to about 14,000 to 15,000 active cases. In recent days, state health officials and Edwards had pointed out that 96% to 98% of new cases were coming from community spread and not nursing homes and other congregant settings, which were hotspots earlier in the pandemic sweep through the state. Bars first began to reopen in early June when the state ordered phase 2 of eased social distancing restrictions after a state at-home order had had them shut down for more than 2.5 months. By April, 121,000 people in the hospitality industry had applied for unemployment benefits, Harris said. At the same time, 230 cases identified by the state could be a significant undercount given the troubles the state has had with contact tracing. The agency has spent millions to hire and train hundreds of call center workers to reach out to the people who are affected, track down their close contacts, and advise them to isolate. Although that was a key part of the state's reopening strategy, the state has been able to reach less than half of those who are infected, either because people aren't answering calls or the state doesn't have good contact information. One bar owner in Baton Rouge argued that saying there was an outbreak tied to the Tigerland bars is a loose connection at best. Darren Adams, co-owner of Reggie's in J.L.'s Place in Tigerland, said his own investigation of the outbreak revealed that many students who showed up at his and other bars in the area on the weekend of the outbreak had attended parties at apartments beforehand. They arrived at bars later in the night after they had hit state-mandated capacity limits. Adams, who said his handful of employees infected in the outbreak have recovered, said many of those patrons that hang out in his parking lots. He questioned whether the 10 or so employees in each of his bars, all of whom he said were wearing masks, using hand sanitizer, and taking other measures called for by the state, had infected all those people. There's no way to know the bars gave it to the patrons, he said. Adams suggested those patrons could have infected one another in the parking lot or eventually brought the virus into his bars after partying at home where social distancing was likely far less rigorous. Asked if the scenarios he explained called into question the general wisdom of keeping bars open, Adams offered a sharp rejoinder. Yeah, I guess if a bank wasn't open, it couldn't get robbed. Adams and Harris's broader point was that bar owners can be expected to be responsible for only so much of their employees' and customers' behavior. Still, bars have garnered the ear of public health officials across the country, including Dr. Anthony Fauci, director of the National Institute for Allergy and Infectious Diseases, who told a U.S. Senate panel on Tuesday that bars are problematic. Edwards had urged bar owners to take precautions to prevent the spread of the virus, while conceding it's difficult given the point of bars is to drink and socialize. Bars are supposed to operate like a restaurant, with people sitting at tables and not milling about and congregating. They're limited to 25% occupancy in Louisiana's phase 2 of reopening. Several states have closed bars again amid a resurgence of the virus. Texas shuttered its bars, and Florida banned the consumption of alcohol at them in recent days. Edwards said Wednesday he was not yet at the point of adding additional restrictions, but cases have surged in Louisiana. Governor's office staff member positive for virus, 12 others still quarantining. Governor John Bel Edwards, and this is a Capitol News Bureau staff writers. Governor John Bel Edwards announced Thursday that one of the state capitol staffers tested positive with COVID-19. The person who Edwards did not identify was at a media briefing and attended internal meetings. 12 other staffers had close contact with the person and were advised to self-quarantine. Tests came back Wednesday night, but the person has shown no symptoms, the governor said in a news release. We are monitoring our team, and should it become necessary, we'll be offering testing to our staff members and tracing their contacts to determine who needs to self-quarantine and who could be at risk, Edwards said. According to a release from the governor's office, Edwards is not considered a close contact of the person who tested positive, which is defined as someone who likely had exposure within 6 feet of a person who was infected for at least 15 minutes. And Edwards staffer April Dunn died 3 months ago from COVID-19 complications. As I have said over and over again, COVID-19 is alive and well in Louisiana, and all the people in our state need to take this illness very seriously. Please wear a mask when you are in public, stay home if you feel sick or been directly exposed to someone who is confirmed to have COVID-19. Wash your hands frequently and keep at least 6 feet of social distance from other people when you are in public, Edwards said. In a study, 7.8% of Orleans Jefferson had coronavirus. Nearly half were asymptomatic, by Emily Woodruff and Jessica Williams. A widely anticipated study on the spread of the coronavirus showed that about 7% of the population in Orleans and Jefferson parishes has antibodies for COVID-19, suggesting that widespread immunity is still elusive in a region that was hit hard early on in the outbreak. In one of the first studies of this type aimed at the New Orleans area, researchers from Ochsner Health System selected a sample of 2,640 people from a group of 25,000 volunteers and gave them an antibody test as well as a test urged to diagnose active infections. The tests were conducted in mid-May, just ahead of the phase 1 reopening of the state. About 6.86% of those tested had antibodies, the researchers said. When combined with active infections detected during that time period, researchers concluded that about 7.8% of the population of the two parishes had already been infected with the coronavirus. Antibody tests indicate participants had some exposure to the virus in previous months, though researchers are unsure how long antibodies are present after infection. The Abbott antibody test used was between 95% and 98% accurate, according to the researchers. The test for active infections, also made by Abbott, is around 93% accurate, according to studies. Results from the sample suggest the New Orleans area is nowhere near herd immunity, which would require a large percentage of the population to be infected with the virus to stop it from widely spreading. Researchers also found a 1.63 fatality rate. To get to herd immunity, you need 70 to 80% exposed, said Amy Feehan, a Ochsner research scientist who led the study. You do the math, and that's a whole lot of people dying. The fatality rate of the flu during the last flu season was between 0.04% to 0.16%, suggesting coronavirus is 10 to 40 times more deadly. The study also demonstrated the extent to which people might be affected with the coronavirus without even knowing it. About 40% of positive cases were asymptomatic at the time of testing. 75% of people in the early days of the course of the illness, when the disease is thought to be the most infectious, were asymptomatic. I think this assumption that people will know when they have the disease and when they don't, said Dr. Robert Hart, the medical director of Ochsner Health, and they really won't. Researchers found that a loss of smell and taste, a condition called anosmia, was associated with a 17 times higher chance of testing positive. The study, which is not yet published in a medical journal and has not yet been peer reviewed, also tracks status by zip code and race. Of those tested, 10.3% of Black residents were positive, sharply higher than the 5.9% of white residents who had positive results. New Orleans East and the West Bank were the hardest hit areas during the test period. Jefferson Parish also had hotspots during the testing period. Although herd immunity is a long way off for the two parishes as a whole, some of the hardest hit neighborhoods had sample sizes that reflected a potential of up to 25% of the population infected. At this rate, we may hit 50%, 75% sooner than we thought, said Tulane virologist Robert Gary, an expert in emerging diseases who was not involved in the study. Reaching herd immunity naturally would lead to many more deaths, experts said. The vaccine likely developed by this time next year would be a better option, Gary said. Because the study relied on volunteers targeted through digital ads, it's possible there were biases that skewed the prevalence results, said Susan Hasek, a Tulane epidemiologist who was not involved in the study. People may decide to volunteer for a variety of reasons, said Hasek. Maybe they think they might have had it. How the sample was drawn has everything to do with the validity of the ultimate numeric value. Because the study authors wanted to test the prevalence of the virus in the community before stay-at-home orders lifted in mid-May, the speed and method of collecting samples was necessary, they said. The percent of people actively infected has also likely changed since the samples were taken, experts said. If anything, it's gone up, said Gary. You can see the numbers. That is probably indicative of why we're seeing the increase in cases. This was quite a bit of circulation of virus in the community already. The study points out how little we know about the virus, said Dr. Joe Cantor, an assistant health officer with the Louisiana Department of Health, who called the number of asymptomatic people in the sample a warning call. We are continuing to see the people who say, I don't need to wear a mask, I feel fine, said Cantor. Those individuals lack a key understanding of how this virus works. Something like this makes it clear as day. New Orleans Health Department Director Dr. Jennifer Vegno said the relatively low percentage of residents with resistance to the disease and its relatively high fatality rate reinforces the need for precautions against its spread. The message really is we are in this for a long time until we get a vaccine or another treatment, and that this is a deadly disease, she said. Ochsner is planning to conduct a similar study in the Baton Rouge area in partnership with the Baton Rouge Area Foundation. That study will take into account the test results of 2,500 people to give researchers an idea of how prevalent the virus is among 800,000 people. Study authors have also planned to conduct a second sampling in the coming months to gauge how phases 1 and 2 of reopening affected prevalence. If possible, they said they would like to revisit whether some of the volunteers with antibodies still have them months later. Recent evidence suggests antibodies may be detectable for only 2 to 3 months, especially in people without symptoms while infected. Okay, so a lot of coronavirus-related stories this morning. We're now going to go into a few, hopefully, that are about other news happening throughout the state. But before we get to that, we have about a couple minutes left in our audio portion on our TV stations locally. But at 9:55, and generally speaking, or between 9:55 and 10 a.m., that feed ends. If you want to continue hearing me read it, because I have a couple more stories to read, please continue to listen at our we're at our YouTube channel, AOC Community Media. That's AOC Community Media on YouTube, or our online streaming station. That is Cypress Street Radio. That's CYPRESS Street Radio, streaming online. Scroll down a little bit, you'll see a play button, and you'll continue to hear the news being read to you. So I will continue with a report. Cassidy spent thousands in campaign funds on private club dues by Brian Stoll. Thousands of dollars in campaign expenditures by U.S. Senator Bill Cassidy on membership dues at a pair of social clubs could run afoul of federal campaign finance rules, according to a report in the Roll Call newspaper. Excuse me while I take a quick sip of coffee to lubricate my vocal cords. There we go. Louisiana Republicans spent more than $5,500 on membership fees at the at the elite Penn Club of New York City a private Manhattan club associated with the University of Pennsylvania, and another 650 undues for the Petroleum Club in Morgan City, a social club founded by oil and gas industry businessmen, according to an analysis of federal campaign finance filings by Roll Call, a Washington, D.C. based newspaper that closely covers Congress and federal politics. Federal Election Commission rules prohibit spending campaign donations on membership fees at country clubs, health clubs, or other non-political organization because those costs are considered personal expenses. The rules include an exception for spending at those types of clubs made in connection with a specific fundraising event that takes place on the organization's premises. But even then, they explicitly bar using campaign funds on membership fees. Cassidy campaign spokesman Ty Wolferding denied any wrongdoing in a statement sent to Roll Call and the Advocate. Cassidy, who's currently running for re-election in November, uses the Penn Club for campaign events, and we believe everything was done appropriately. Such spending would be legal under Louisiana's campaign finance rules, but because Cassidy is running for re-election to a federal office, federal campaign finance regulations govern fundraising and spending by his campaign. According to Roll Call, Cassidy has been paying dues at the swanky Penn Club since 2014. While Cassidy doesn't attend Penn, the Ivy League university located in Philadelphia, Cassidy's sons attended. Roll Call found that Cassidy's Senate campaign has spent more than $12,400 at the club since 2013, including food, drinks, fundraising events, and hotel rooms at the club on top of the membership dues. Erin Klopek, a former FEC attorney who now serves as campaign finance strategy director at the Campaign Legal Center, told Roll Call that federal rules strictly prohibit using campaign funds from membership dues to a social club, even if the campaign also held fundraising events at the club. Using campaign money for a social club membership, regardless of the amount, would be personal use and not legal, Klopek told the newspaper. New Orleans Archdiocese seeks deadline for claims. Abuse survivors want more time by Ramon Antonio Vargas. The Archdiocese of New Orleans asked a federal judge late Wednesday to require anyone with clergy abuse claims against the local church to come forward by September 29th, almost certainly setting up the next legal dispute in the church's 2-month-old bankruptcy case. U.S. bankruptcy judge Meredith Grable did not immediately rule on whether to make September 29th the so-called bar date, which is expected to prompt many more remaining claimants to file complaints of abuse and demands for compensation. That date would also stand as a deadline for other entities to claim debts from the church that predates its May 1st filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protections, except for government agencies for whom the church requested a couple of extra months. In its 21-page request to Grable, church attorneys argued that bankruptcy procedures allow for bar dates to be set 90 days after the date of the first meeting of the committee representing creditors' interests. The church says the end of that 90-day window in this case is August 27th, but believes that providing an extra 32 days will provide sufficient notice to known and unknown creditors while striking an appropriate balance of moving this bankruptcy case forward at an appropriate speed. The setting of a bar date is an important step in providing the church with the information it needs to formulate a plan and eventually conclude this bankruptcy proceeding, attorneys for the church wrote in their request. An attorney for a committee of creditors in the case, many of whom are clergy abuse survivors, said Thursday that a bar date just 3 months into the future is unacceptable. Jim Stang, who's represented clergy abuse victims in more than a dozen church bankruptcies, said in his experience, bar dates are on average set for 6 months after various claim-related forms are approved. Assuming that process in this case ends in August, a reasonable bar date would be in February, he said. Stang, who also represented survivors of the USA Gymnastics sex abuse scandal, noted that the bar date in the Diocese of Rochester's bankruptcy in New York was set nearly a year out from the case's September filing. The Archdiocese, which has avoided discussing its bankruptcy out of court, didn't immediately respond to a request for comment on the timeline for claims, but dates are stated in bankruptcy proceedings, which are usually meant to allow financially troubled entities to address all of their claims and start anew with a clean slate. Still, in most corporate bankruptcies, claimants are typically creditors, customers, or other vendors with a business relationship to the company in bankruptcy. Church proceedings also involve scores of claimants dealing with the wrenching trauma of having been abused by priests and other clergy as children. Notably, the Archdiocese attorney said the request come one day after Stang's side indicated it would ask Graybill to dismiss the bankruptcy. Stang on Thursday confirmed this was true, but declined to discuss the grounds to request a dismissal from Graybill. The move, if filed soon, would come a little more than a month after the Archdiocese Vicar of Finance, Patrick Carr, testified at a hearing that the local church would be solvent without the Chapter 11 bankruptcy or reorganization protections. Carr's testimony echoes statements he and Archbishop Gregory Amond made when they met with news media reporters hours after the bankruptcy filing. That day, the pair said the church needed to file for bankruptcy protections because the cost of litigating numerous clergy abuse claims and shutdowns associated with the coronavirus pandemic had dealt crippling blows to the finances of Archdiocese administrative offices. They said it was the only way the church could settle its debts without compromising its ministry to 500,000 Catholics in the New Orleans area. Clergy abuse advocates have rejected these explanations, contending that the bankruptcy's goal was to halt numerous pending lawsuits that have produced revelations that were embarrassing to the church. One suit turned up emails establishing that the New Orleans Saints and Pelicans sports franchise had given what the organizations call public relations advice to the Archdiocese, as church officials prepared to release a November 2018 list of priests and deacons deemed credibly accused of child sex abuse. The emails between the church and the teams owned by Amon's close friend Gail Benson remain under seal. Evidence in another suit detailed the church's practice of providing priests with financial support for living expenses, even if abuse claims had forced them to retire years earlier. Graybill ordered a halt to such payments in May. Meanwhile, molestation survivors advocates have noted, the bankruptcy filing indefinitely postponed a May 28th deposition of Amon, who is expected to face questioning over the Archdiocese's handling of the decades-old clergy abuse crisis. There has been move to dismiss bankruptcy claims after they got underway elsewhere. In one such instance in 2007, before a judge ruled on whether to dismiss the Diocese of San Diego's Chapter 11 bankruptcy due to fiscal irregularities, the church reached a $200 million settlement with victims. And in March 2018, the Diocese of Great Falls, Montana, moved to dismiss a bankruptcy case it filed a year earlier, saying it was draining resources that could instead be used to make abuse victims whole. A few months later, the diocese reached a $20 million settlement with survivors. Graybill has tentatively set the next hearing in the New Orleans Archdiocese bankruptcy case for July 16th. First Horizon completes a $3.9 billion deal to purchase Iberia Bank, combined bank to be one of the largest in the South by Kristen Mossbrucker. The nearly $4 billion deal to combine Lafayette-based Iberia Bank with First Horizon Bank, headquartered in Tennessee, has been completed. The 133-year-old Iberia Bank is expected to change its name to First Horizon in mid-2021. No changes to general business operations, signs, accounts, ATMs, and debit or credit cards are expected until the 2021 conversion, the company said. Tennessee Bank already has a connection to Louisiana, although First Horizon CEO Brian Jordan grew up in North Carolina. He was born in Alexandria. Purpose of Iberia Bank makes First Horizon one of the largest financial services companies across the South and among the top 25 banks in the U.S. who are ranked by deposits at $60 billion with 460 banking centers across 11 states. The combined entity has $79 billion in assets. The deal was disclosed to the public in November, months before the coronavirus pandemic threw the economic world into a spin cycle. The most difficult part of this transition during such an uncertain era was the lack of in-person meetings during the integration of the two companies, the executive said. We know that at some point the economy would go into a recession, but in November last year, none of us could have expected it, Jordan said. First Horizon headquarters in Memphis will remain, and the company will have a regional office in New Orleans. First Horizon also expects to keep Iberia Bank's downtown Lafayette office because it owns the property. Iberia Bank's financial services arm in New Orleans has operated with several hundred workers and is expected to continue as an important market. The pandemic could influence future generations about where to invest people in brick-and-mortar infrastructure as the public has shied away from bank lobbies or even handling cash. We are willing and able to invest in any and all markets to meet customer demand, but we'll learn more in about 6 to 12 months. Customer behavior has clearly been impacted by the pandemic, Jordan said. I don't know if financial centers or branches will be an important part as more people work remotely. The CEO of Iberia Bank, Daryl Bird, becomes the executive chairman of First Horizon for several years before he plans to step down and serve as a consultant for U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission filings show. Under the terms of the agreement, the Iberia Bank's shareholders will receive 4.584 shares of First Horizon for each Iberia Bank share they own. About 56% of the combined company will be held by First Horizon shareholders and 44% by Iberia Bank shareholders. The new board of directors will have 17 members, 9 from First Horizon and 8 from Iberia Bank, which was ranked as the largest bank headquartered in Louisiana. The companies expect to save $170 million from combining operations. The cost-saving measures are expected across First Horizon, not just in Iberia Bank's footprint, although there may be some corporate layoffs. The company expects to reduce employee count through people leaving or retiring. There are no plans for frontline bank worker layoffs such as tellers. It will be spread across the franchise. Most of the savings will be from leveraging buying power, consolidating real estate, and there will be some impact on people and job elimination, Jordan said. Most of First Horizon's bank presence is in Tennessee, North Carolina, and South Carolina. Iberia Bank is primarily in Gulf Coast states from Texas to Florida and in Arkansas. The merger culminates a period of growth for Iberia Bank, ushered by Bird, a former executive with formerly New Orleans-based First Commerce Corp., who joined Iberia Bank in 1999. Through about 2 dozen acquisitions, Bird is often credited with steering the Lafayette Bank from obscurity to a major regional player. With the incredible legacies of both the organizations as our foundation, we plan to combine the best of both companies to position us for success in this rapidly evolving world, Bird said of the merger with First Horizon. Iberia Bank has more than 3,100 employees as of September. First Horizon has more than 5,500 employees. There are 515 Iberia Bank employees in New Orleans, 342 in Lafayette, 115 in Baton Rouge, 122 in New Iberia, 77 in Lake Charles, 45 in Monroe, and 37 in Shreveport. First Horizon also expects to continue charitable contributions in Louisiana with plans for a new foundation for which $20 million is allocated. Economic summits to focus on pandemic recovery, staff report. 4 economic summits are being held in late July and early August to tap business and community leaders for a big picture understanding of the Baton Rouge, Lafayette, New Orleans, and statewide communities. With the theme of bringing back the economy, each of the events will focus on the recovery from the coronavirus pandemic with a view toward any shortcomings and obstacles and emerging bright spots in the three major metro markets served by the Advocate in Baton Rouge, in Acadiana, and the Times-Picayune, New Orleans Advocate, plus the state. The panels will explore trends that have emerged as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and seek to understand how they will affect our business communities in the months ahead, said Advocate and Times-Picayune publisher Judy Tersosis. Part of our mission is to facilitate conversation. Now more than ever, our communities need to come together to help navigate these unprecedented times and return to a robust economy. Each economic summit will be from 8:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. via an online conversation among panelists and moderators. Each market summit will be live streamed through its corresponding website, theadvocate.com for Baton Rouge, NOLA.com for New Orleans, and the AcadianaAdvocate.com for Lafayette, plus Facebook Live and YouTube. There will also be print newspaper coverage of each event. The schedule for the four summits is in Baton Rouge on July 28th. That includes an overview of the area economy presented by panelist Adam Knapp, President and Chief Executive Officer of the Baton Rouge Area Chamber. Three other panelists will focus on specific industries in the region: industrial and petrochemical, the healthcare and medical sector, and commercial real estate. The panelists addressing those industries are Connie Fabre, President and CEO of the Greater Baton Rouge Industry Alliance, Terry Sterling, CEO of Health Care from Terry Sterling Consulting, former hospital executive and co-chairwoman of the Louisiana Resilient Commission, and Jonathan Walker, Senior Commercial Sales and Leasing Executive at Manistry Mural Real Estate. In Lafayette on July 29th, panelists confirmed so far are Ben Berthelot, President and CEO of the Lafayette Convention and Visitors Commission, who oversees tourist promotion and marketing for Lafayette Parish, Gifford Briggs, President of the Louisiana Oil and Gas Association, and Gary Wagner, a professor of economics at the University of Louisiana in Lafayette, whose role includes providing research, forecasting, and outlook reporting on the regional economy. In New Orleans on August 6, topics will focus on tourism and hospitality, trade, and the economy and economic development. Panelists confirmed so far are Brandy Christian, Chief Executive Officer of the Port of New Orleans, and Michael Hecht, President and Chief Executive Officer of GNO Incorporated. And statewide on August 7th, panelists are Greg Bowser, President of the Louisiana Chemical Association, which represents more than 60 chemical manufacturing companies across Louisiana, David Dismukes, Executive Director and a professor at the LSU Center for Energy Studies, Don Pearson, Secretary of Louisiana Economic Development, and Melvin Rodriguez, Chairman of the National Restaurant Association and President and CEO of Galatours Restaurant in New Orleans. The mid-year outlook follows annual summits held during the first 2 months of 2019 and 2020 in Baton Rouge, New Orleans, and Lafayette. Those panel discussions will be held in front of an audience of business, civic, nonprofit, and government leaders, and live streamed to larger online audiences. With these mid-year events, panelists will be participating remotely from their offices with questions directed to them from editors and newsrooms in each market. The four summits are being sponsored by Hancock Whitney. Louisiana jobless claims rise again. New unemployment claims across Louisiana increased again last week as the state is dealing with an uptick in coronavirus cases, and leaders hit the pause button on moving into phase 3 of reopening the economy. There were 21,976 first-time unemployment claims filed last week, up from 19,524 claims the week before. By comparison to more typical numbers, there were only 2,206 new unemployment claims for the same week last year. Existing unemployment claims increased as well to 306,089 last week from 300,389 the week before. Economists predicted Louisiana would face a slower recovery than the rest of the nation. The state's unemployment recovery ranks at the 5th slowest in the nation as of last week. In Louisiana, new unemployment claims for workers in food services and accommodations are continuing to lead statewide job losses, with 3,383 new claims filed, followed by 2,770 unclassified workers, 2,355 retail and trade losses, and 2,338 construction losses. And finally, we have a sports story this morning, folks. Still doesn't feel real. 1 year since his death, Tony Robichaux's family continues to learn, grow from Life of Occasions baseball legend by Kevin Foote, sports writer for The Advocate. As each significant holiday passes, it's another first for Tony Robichaux's family. 2 weekends ago, it was the first Father's Day without the longtime UL baseball coach handling the duties on the pit for the family's big Sunday barbecue. Before that, it was the first Christmas and first Easter without him. All those special occasions have led Robichaux's family to July 3rd, 2020, 1 year since the coaching icon's tragic death to heart failure. Some days it still doesn't feel real, his oldest son Justin said. Some days it feels like it was 2 months ago. Nothing in me feels like it's been the length of a year. I think at most it feels like a couple of months. It definitely doesn't feel like a calendar year has gone by since we lost our father. For the rest of their lives, it's a date that will carry so many different emotions. The first one still involves processing, as well as appreciating all the many ways Robichaux's legacy carries on. We're very mindful of this date, Justin said. I had a very close friend of mine mention it to me, and it kind of really hit home. He said, "Man, you should feel privileged as a son that you had a father that I think everyone in Lafayette and in the community knew where they were when they heard the news on July 3rd, 2019. I never thought about it that way." When you do think about it that way, you remember all the lives that were touched by him. How many players have successful marriages and businesses because of his impact? Perhaps the thing Tony Robichaux himself will be the most proud of is that Friday marks 1 full year of his family and friends learning, growing, and somehow becoming better people, even in his physical absence. There's no way to know exactly when wife Colleen, Justin, daughter Ashley, or youngest son Austin would be in their lives if Robichaux hadn't died a year ago. One thing is for sure, none of them will ever be the same. As a man, I've never been in touch with my emotions, Justin said. But when you experience something of that magnitude, it causes you to get in touch with some emotions and the growth process with who you are as a person and who you are as a husband and a father. My dad changed me through this process to make me better. Those are the things I'm specifically hanging on to as a son and a former player of him. Justin said he now feels like he's 31 going on 40, and that Austin went from 18 to 30 in the snap of fingers last July. I know my father will be extremely proud of the mother my sister is and what she does with that family and the growth that my brother has made through this process and the level of strength that we continue to see on a daily basis from my mom, he said. I think especially Austin, said Tony's twin brother, Tim Robichaux, whose daughter and Tony's goddaughter, Olivia, is now expecting their first child. He was kind of the baby of the family, but having to go through what he had to go through and what he's doing now, taking on so much responsibility, he's definitely grown a lot. It's affected all of them, but I think he's changed a good bit. We stay in touch with all of them, but Austin has definitely grown and matured a lot. But through the years, the year-long struggle of life without dad, no one set a better example in Justin's mind than his mother. Me personally, I feel like I was strong until I saw my mom, Justin said. I had no idea. My sister, my brother, nor myself had no idea the level of strength that woman possesses. To be quite honest, we talk about perspective. That's one perspective that we came in way with through all of this. We have a warrior for a mom, and we were blessed to have a warrior for a dad. The family's strength publicly from this wake to the funeral until today has amazed many in the UL community. But Justin said the entire family knows their strength isn't centered in the personal resolve. In my experience, when tragedy strikes that hard, you need something to hang on to. Because tragedy has a unique way of changing us all, Justin said. We just had the luxury of experiencing grace through the process and a family that's supremely supported in the community. I mean, do you realize that at one point in time, we probably had millions of people praying for our family? Millions of people. That's how we got through it. That's how we'll continue to get through it. The family also moves on with the help of moments of comfort. One such example came on Father's Day. Colleen decided to move her late husband's truck back to its customary spot that day. It didn't go unnoticed. You turn the corner and you see his truck in the spot where it hadn't been there in a while. In a short period of time, your mind lapses back to when he was there, Justin said. Other than Ashley's husband, Lon Moody, handling the outdoor cooking duties this time around, that day was as close to normal as possible without Dad physically being there, just like Mom planned. For the majority of my life, we'll always go to the house, and he would barbecue and we'd hang out as a family, Justin said. That's the same exact thing we did this year. Lon manned the pit, the grandkids and my mom played in the water, and my mom actually backed his truck into a spot so that it would be as normal as if he was still here. In retrospect, when we did get together like that, we feel him. The family also continues to recognize how soothing a role the UL community has played in moving on. Everything the athletic department at UL has done has been first class, Justin said. They've stayed in touch with our family. The generosity everyone at UL has shown us has been incredible. Another luxury the Robichaux family possesses that many grieving families don't is the ability to punch his name into Google and hear his voice. So much has been written and said about Tony's Robyisms. One-liners filled with life lessons and gems dripping with perspective. A lot of people ask me what Robyism speaks to you, Justin said. I think Austin, Ashley, and myself are very fortunate that that's how he talked all the time at home. When you hear him publicly, to us it's a foreign language. It's how he spoke to us. To hear what people are doing with that and how they're hanging on to that, I think you would be extremely pleased and happy to know the blueprint of impact is still making a difference. Justin said he recently received an email from a former player who said Tony's words of advice are guiding him through a tough divorce. It was that influence on the world around Robichaux that gave his family peace with sharing their grief last summer. The biggest thing was what he stood for and how many lives are affected, Tim said. That's what really gave us that inner peace to get through everything. We realized that we needed to share him because of what he meant to so many people. So many could use Robichaux's wisdom today with the coronavirus pandemic and a social revolution dominating the hearts and minds of Americans everywhere. I can only imagine what his press conference would be like if someone posed him a question, whether it would be about the pandemic or what's going on in society today. Longtime UL assistant coach Anthony Babineau said. In an era of great perspective, few provided more fitting big picture thoughts than Tony Robichaux. No doubt, Babineau said. We talked in the office all the time that there are plenty of reasons why we wish Tony Robichaux was still with us today, but none more so than to see and hear what his reaction would be to what is going on in today's world, what advice he would give to both his players and to his coaches on how to handle or how to perceive what's going on in today's world. As we all know too well, he would definitely have a stance on all of this, and he would definitely have advice on some helpful ways to handle and deal with everything that's going on. In Justin's mind, it would begin with fixing the man in the mirror in these trying times. It's in these unique moments that Coach Tony Robichaux, was able to put in purity for you to get in to understand that you do have more than you think you have. You just have to learn how to do it differently, Justin said. That's what a roboism means to me. Like so many, Robichaux himself would have been able to spend more time with his family during these coronavirus days of watching and waiting. When that wasn't possible, Robichaux spent much of the time away from home working with Babineau and building the Cajuns baseball program. There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about Tony and all the great things that he's done for myself and everybody that he's come in contact with, Babineau said. For me, for someone who spent literally every day of their lives with someone, with the exception of holidays, you think about him daily. I miss being able to walk down the hall and talk to him about anything, whether it's something business related or looking for some advice, just anything. You really miss that. Justin said he catches himself every now and then trying to create such moments. I feel sorry for the guy that took over his cell phone number, Justin said, while laughing. It's still on my phone. The biggest thing is just not having him around to talk to, Tim said. We spent so many nights late at night talking on the phone, or I would catch him before he leave for work. Even catch myself sometimes thinking about something and then reaching for my phone before you realize you can't call him anymore. Still, for his twin brother, his best remembrances finally came on a baseball field. I still do a lot of coaching on the weekends, Tim said. It was our kind of relief and outlet to get on the field. I think about him a lot every time I step onto the field to coach. Besides being twin brothers, it's a game we shared. We talked a lot about it. He helped me, and I helped him. Man, that is a story that promotes a lot of emotional feelings. We all remember, if we're into sports or UL sports, we all remember a year ago today. And we'll always remember a year ago today as the day that Coach Robichaux left us. Well, folks, thank you. If you stuck with me for this amount of time, I usually wrap up this forecast like a half an hour ago. I really appreciate you sticking with me. If you did, listening to, there was just a lot of news to cover. Mostly coronavirus, I understand, but a lot of news to cover. And I appreciate you hanging with me. We do this every morning, Monday through Friday, from usually 9 to 10 a.m. We bring you the Acadiana Advocates version of journalism to our community, especially those who are visually impaired, or for those who don't get the newspaper or the news cycle. We appreciate you tuning in and letting us give you this community service that we provide here at AOC, and we're glad to do it. If you're out there and you're listening and you like what you hear, please go to our website, aocinc.org, and find the volunteer reading volunteer form. Fill out that form, and please come and join the newspaper reading family. We would greatly appreciate it. And as always, as I say, this has been Bruce Cohen, and will be Bruce Cohen, and will always be Bruce Cohen, saying be safe, be healthy, and be smart, folks. Please be smart. Of all the coronavirus news I read this morning, this thing is still with us and will be with us for a while. Please be smart. Wear your mask when you're around others. Take care of yourself. Stay healthy, stay fit, stay happy, and above all, be kind to each other. Have a good morning and a great July 4th weekend. See you on Monday.